What's going on here? Like, I'm so not used to doing this anymore. I'm not even dressed.
You got a shower cap
Okay,
on?
I got a shower cap on. Oh, hey. What? Oh, I know. I think I know how to do this. All right, ladies and gentlemen.
Hold on. Who are you people?
Who are you people? I don't know anymore.
Where am I?
What is this?
I don't know. It's weird.
Mm-hmm.
Did we used to do something like this a while ago?
Yeah. I seem to remember. Didn't it start us a little bit something like, ladies and gentlemen, if you can hear the dulcet tones of my voice, you know, once again, it is time for the worst 120 minutes or so in all of sports. That's right. I'm Mike, and this is the Too Many Guys Soccer Show. Yes, we're back like a spine, bigger, better, and twice as ugly. We've been on a little bit of a hiatus. In the biggest understatement ever, you know, we're not professionals. So we have day jobs, and, you know, that kind of got in the way we have lives that kind of got in the way the last couple of weeks, months or so, but that's all right. You know, things are back under control. We got some transitions going on, big ones, but we're happy to be back.
Absolutely.
I'm joined as always by my good friend, producer Stead. Stead, your background looks a little bit bare, like some things are under, something's going on.
Yeah, I'm in a little bit of a flux right now. Hopefully my voice isn't having too much of an echo, but considering that I am in the throngs of a interstate move, I have been clearing out. So as you see, there's a bunch of boxes and stuff, and that's about it. But yeah, we are on our way. We will be in Atlanta in about 3 weeks. We'll be actually specifically Marietta, but yeah, we are going to be relocating. And, you know, since, you know, we got G went from Tampa to New Orleans, we still got Los in New Orleans, you know, figured we could spread the Too Many Guys around a little bit more. So
yeah, and so we'll have you covering all things Atlanta United.
I'm gonna have to become a fan. Exactly. I'm gonna have to start supporting them. You know, gotta support the local team.
No.
See,
I told him.
We could get Matt to handle DC United, you know.
You can support United because they're a good team. Support them because you like them. Support them. But when I moved from Philly to DC, everybody said, "Oh, well, you live in DC area now. You live in Maryland. You're gonna have to give up that Philly stuff. You don't have to become a fan of the Bullets." The Nats or the Orioles.
Save yourself at least from the Bullets.
The Bullets, that team without a name, the Washington
worst
team
name
of football.
Ever. Yep.
The Washington Commanders team of football, Commanders Redskins team football, Commanders Redskins,
which is probably going to get changed again with the new owner.
And the Washington Capitals. And I said, no, you know, you can take the boy out of Philly, but you can't take the Philly out of the boys. So
yeah.
But I know that your relationship to DC is not exactly the same as mine is.
You're exactly right.
Philadelphia, because you know, you were a military brat, so you grew up all over the place.
Right. I never really had a home team, so the home team was just happened to be living. But I imagine I've been in this area long enough, and outside of the football team, my family has not really been big into the local sports anyway. So I can say that. We'll see. You know, the sad thing is that what I'm worried about most is the fact that the baseball team, which I have supported, but you got to remember, when you're a military kid and you're moving around all the time, you get cable. What are the two stations that you always get on cable? You get
it used to be
TBS
WGN.
So what are the two teams that I grew up supporting? Cubs, Braves. I was a huge Cubs fan, especially because my youth baseball team were the Cubs. And then, of course, I supported the Braves because the Braves were also always on television. I had some buddies who were from Atlanta. They were big Braves fans. So I actually was supporting the Braves long before I was supporting the Nationals. So I'm kind of wondering, does that mean that all of a sudden I'm not going to really support Nats anymore? Especially because look at what's happening currently with those two teams. Nats are 8 games under 500, and they're doing better than anybody expected them to. And Braves just won a World Series relatively recently. So we'll see. And exactly where I'm going to be living. I'm going to be living about 20 minutes from the ballpark, since it's not since it's in Cobb County. It's not in Greater Atlanta anymore.
It's about what, 2 or so hours outside of Greater Atlanta?
Oh no, it's only about 30 minutes, I'd say.
I was saying 2 or so hours based on traffic.
Oh well, yeah. You got that right. That's one thing I'll be bringing with me to Atlanta is the DC traffic, or at least on the Virginia side, is pretty much the same as it is down there. People who say it's worse in Atlanta, go move to Northern Virginia. It's exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's exactly the same. Northern Virginia has the worst traffic, and so does Atlanta.
So, G.
What's happening, gentlemen? It's finally, I have to get my glasses on. I can finally see now. I see what Arteta's been doing over there, in merry old England. But yeah, life is great out here. And going through Atlanta, the 4 times I've ever gone through Atlanta, I have planned a trip to drive through there at night. I will never drive through Atlanta during the day, and I've actually driven accordingly. Like, all right, if I'm there at 2 o'clock in the morning and I plan shit like leaving Tampa at 6 o'clock at night, Atlanta traffic is nothing to mess with now. LA, that's something that's another animal, another beast, but definitely 2 cities that you don't want to be stuck in traffic.
No.
LA, you don't want to be stuck in traffic, but the thing about LA, I gotta admit, having been out there a number of times, having had to drive out there a number of times, like, okay, the traffic is awful. Avoid it like the plague. But there's those few times where you leave like later on in the evening after rush hour or on a Saturday or something, and you get out on the freeway and you can get up to speed and you're driving, and I'm like, man, this is fun. So, I mean, Atlanta, I don't ever remember having that experience. So, LA driving, there are times where it's actually enjoyable.
Well, I have to agree with that. With the ocean to one side, the mountains and everything else, and kind of like the lights on the houses and whatnot. Yeah, it's something different. It's just like you're living in the plains, like of Illinois and Florida. Everything is flat. So anything that has hills, I'm like, oh my God, there's actually kind of curvature of the earth. I live in the 2, and I think Louisiana now, my 3rd state, is the 3 flattest states of all the union. So I love mountains. I love seeing all that stuff. So I can be just amazed at driving that kind of that terrain.
Well, the problem with Atlanta is Atlanta doesn't have any sort of natural border. There's no mountain that keeps it from growing. There's no river. There's no ocean or anything like that. So the sprawl in Atlanta is just, it's never going to stop. It's just going to keep growing and growing and growing. So, and which is what compounds the traffic, because, you got to build the infrastructure before the people come. And that's not really how cities do it. So so we'll see. I mean, luckily from where the part of Atlanta I'm living, it's definitely not nearly as bad as it would be if I was actually like a bit closer in, or actually, in the city. Because when you get in the city, of course, it's a nightmare, but I will not be commuting. I will not be working in the city. So
you will not be working, fine. Period. So
well, I will not be working for somebody else. I'll put it that way. I'll be my own entrepreneur. I'll own my own business. So yes, I can actually say I will go and I will do my work on that property at 3 a.m.
There you go.
All right, let's talk some football.
Yeah, let's talk some football. It's done.
Yeah. Almost.
It's done. Almost. Yes. We still have the matter of some championship cup games to be played. There's an FA Cup this weekend between
Derby,
Manchester United, Manchester City. I will be watching that with what I expect to be a pretty decent crew. We found a location here, and they're going to open early. And I talked to the manager yesterday, and he said he's already been getting calls. And the only person who can stream the game, who can put the game on for him, is me. So that's going to be interesting.
Might be a trade-off, every couple hours, $20 off, $30 off a tab.
I think I should drink for free.
I agree.
On top of,
but but the problem would be if I do that, I might put him out of business. I think there's the Copa del Rey, I believe, still has to be played. And then there's the big one, Manchester City and Inter Milan, coming up in about 10 days, a little more than 10 days, to decide the the European Championships. It's been a very interesting season. We even got interesting news today after the season. Lionel Messi definitely leaving PSG, and Karim Benzema leaving Real Madrid to go join Cristiano Ronaldo in Saudi Arabia.
Mm-hmm. Getting that bag, brother.
Elsewhere, the U.S. men's national team is on their 5,000th coach in the last 6 months.
USA, USA. No.
This is, gentlemen, this is why we can't have nice things.
Telling you guys. You keep on eating this USA juicy burger, and when you bite into it, it is raw meat. Why do you guys keep falling for the trap? They will never be good. It's the biggest drama of soccer.
Look. When you have a clear last name of a region of a country that most Americans have not been to, it's blatantly obvious that you could pull for Italy, G. Okay. I, like several people like me, don't have that luxury. Okay. So I'm forced.
So that was kind of what uniform do I wear tonight? Do I wear the Arsenal or do I wear my brand new Azuri kit? I go, coming back the 100th, show, I got to wear the Arsenal.
Yes, it is our 100th show. I can't believe it's been 100 times that we've done this.
Well, what's funny is, as far as the count is concerned of the official shows, this is actually supposedly number 99. But we've had a couple of shows we've canceled along the way. And so I was like, you know what? I want to rebirth this. We're going to start at 100 since we were so close. This is officially show number 100. So,
but the other thing was we haven't always used this platform.
Exactly. We have not. And when you include various other things for international tournaments and World Cups and stuff like that we've done over the years, we're well beyond 100. But as far as the flagship, this is our
100.
Absolutely.
We have no idea what show number this actually is.
I don't really know. I think it's like 132 or something. I don't really know.
We have decided that it will become the 100th show, 100th Too Many Guys Soccer show. Yeah. You know why? Because we are in charge, and this keeps in line with our brand. We have no idea what we are doing, but we are effective at doing it. I have no idea what direction this show is going in, but we know that we are making good time.
Absolutely.
What is that? What is that saying? Fake it until you make it.
That's right.
That's what we're doing. Fake it until we're making it.
Baby. We've been faking it till we make it for a long time. We still haven't made it. G, you got the new Italy kit. I don't know. It's kind of darker in his location, but I, as I lean to the side, you can see I hung the brand new Jamaica jersey today. Beautiful. Very pretty. It's a very beautiful jersey that I was able to pick up. Homage to my cousin and his family who are Jamaican, and some of my family who are Jamaican. Maybe I'm going to start rooting for Jamaica over the U.S. because as dysfunctional as they are, at least they have a manager and they can seem to get it right.
And Jamaica has actually beaten the United States several times. They're actually really tough against the United States. It's not a bad pick, actually.
I think their kit is just better.
Their kit is better.
It's better, yeah. It's consistently better.
They definitely have a nice range this year. Adidas did very, very well by them this time around. In fact, not only did I get the jersey, but I was able to get my hands on a sale for the Anthem jacket that is reversible.
Right on. That looks pretty cool too.
Yeah, the inside, the black with the red and green designs is really sweet.
Awesome.
So, as we got a chance to talk a little bit of sartorial splendor. So, all right, mentioned Arsenal, check. Made fun of the United States men's soccer team, check. Talked about soccer fashion, check. All right, we are right on. Got lost in show number, check. We are right on time for what we should be doing this show. It was a fascinating end to the season for a lot of reasons in the EPL, and especially in the Bundesliga. We'll get a chance to talk to Byron Robb a little bit about that, but that's Saturday. And it was so great that, with the Premier League Championship Day being on Sunday and Spain happening a little bit later, it was almost as if, Bundesliga had that morning section, that morning period to themselves so that we could all witness the insanity that was the end of the Bundesliga season with Bayern Munich getting the 1-0 victory that they needed, while Borussia Dortmund at home slips up 2-1. They had it in their grasp, and they just tripped over their own feet at their own stadium and gave it
All
away.
they had to do was win.
To a Mainz that wasn't really playing for much of anything.
Yep.
Nothing at all.
All they needed to do, and they just couldn't get it together. And
stinking draw.
It was it's hard to say it was anything but a choke job. So we'll talk to Rob about, the 11th straight title for Bayern, but, no matter how you cut it, something is rotten in the state of Bavaria. Then there was no real drama at the top of the Premier League. Right? The top
any sort of drama ended 4 games ago.
The top 6 spots were decided once Manchester United beat Chelsea. Everything was pretty locked in 1 through 6. Everything was locked in 1 through 6.
Right.
Arsenal got a thumping win that they deserved. Manchester United actually showed a little bit of grit coming back. A great penalty save by David De Gea against Mitrovic kind of spurred them on. They come out 2-0 winners. They finish in second. Newcastle get a draw. They finish in Manchester United finished in third. Newcastle get their draw. They finish in fourth. Liverpool ekes one out, but still get finished against a Southampton team that was a relegated Southampton team. Shows up and throws everything in the world.
That was a phenomenal game.
That was a phenomenal game.
Yeah.
I was watching it because I was watching a Manchester United game. I had my iPad with the goal zone on, so I could keep track of what was going on elsewhere. The drama was down at the bottom where a late winner for Everton has them avoid relegation, sends down Leicester, Leeds, and Southampton, who are already relegated. So Leicester become the second team to be relegated after having won the Premier League title. Right, the other being Blackburn, who won it in the 90s. But Leicester, we kind of know the story there. Some bad signings, some signings that when you're running with the budget that they were running with, every time you sell a player, you have to be able to get something like for like almost in, right? Buy low, sell high.
Yeah.
And they just weren't able to do that. I think they had a couple of pieces that they could have sold earlier. Jamie Vardy remains a talisman for them, even though he is much into the twilight of his career.
Absolutely.
More of a super sub than anything else. You can argue that they could have sold him on, but I don't think he ever really wanted to leave. I think he was happy at Leicester, and they were happy to have him. But you can argue they probably could have done a better job of moving on the likes of Yuri Tielemans and James Maddison, where the value was high, and replacing them. But the scouting, I think, just dried up on them. The players that they brought in weren't able to transition and get their games up quick enough. They're owned by King Power, the travel conglomerate that owns duty-free shops and things like that. We know that in Thailand and throughout Southeast Asia, we know they took a massive hit during COVID, so the funds weren't necessarily there the same way. It'll be very interesting to see what happens there. Leeds, gentlemen, I got to say, and instead I'll be interested to see what you think about this. I just think it was a downhill thing once they got rid of Marcelo Bielsa.
Agree.
They just seemed to be on a downward trajectory, and then, once they got rid of Bielsa, and I don't want to say that Jesse Marsch was the wrong choice. I think that Bielsa, it's a classic example of you have a team that is built to play the way one manager wants them to play, and then you don't necessarily bring in a manager whose football vision fits what you actually have on the pitch.
Mm-hmm.
And so they brought in Jesse Marsh at the end of last season after having gotten rid of Bielsa. And he had a transfer window. He did get a little more, if you want he got the likes of Wes McKinney and Tyler Adams, guys that he really wanted to work with. He had Brendan Aronson. He had some guys in there that he really wanted to work with, but I don't feel like he ever had a team whose skill set fit his vision of how football should be played. And as a result, they suffered. They bring somebody else in who has a totally different vision. They get a couple of games, but it doesn't work. At the end, they try to bring it to just manager carousel, and it just breaks down on them. So this project, after 2 seasons, is over.
Yeah, it's exactly what you're saying, though. You know, moving on from Bielsa I'm not saying that was the wrong thing to do, but you had to understand who the core of his players were and say, okay, well, this is what we have to work with here. Do we really want to juggle? And, you know, pay attention to what you've seen before you. This never works. It never works. So if you're going to fire a manager and not expect a serious dip to come in, especially if you're not a Big Six club, then I thought the writing was on the wall. And
you know, I've always felt like he was kind of like a like a god for that team. Like he just fit that mold, and the entire city and the club just drank the Kool-Aid. He was kind of a cult leader-esque. And when you take the cult leader away from them, they're in disarray, and that's exactly what we saw. He built that team up from the lower levels and rose them up, got the promotion, came up, and yeah, he had a couple faltering games in the very beginning. But when you get rid of kind of a strong leader like that, who kind of built them for where they were right there, and he had the pieces, like you guys said, he had the pieces exactly how he wanted. It just didn't work out in the very beginning of the season. Maybe get some new transfers in there. But when you get rid of him, then you get a new coach in there. Now you get some other blood in there. Will never be the same chemistry. We've seen that numerous times, no matter what sport it is, and it's just it's a recipe of just failure for the club that 1 year.
Look, let me ask both of you a question. Did any of you think this would turn out well with Jesse Marsh?
I hoped it would. I was always skeptical that it would, and I think it was the wrong fit for Jesse Marsh.
I agree 1,000%. Jesse Marsh should not have come to the Premier League at all. That was a bad move on his part.
I think he should have come to. I will disagree. I think there is a place in the Premier League for him. I think that a place in the Premier League for him is with a more stable organization that's not in a relegation scrap when he picks them up.
Okay, I can see when he picks them up, but outside of like 7 teams, everyone seems to be in that relegation scrap at some point. And I just wonder that I don't think that if he was going to come to the Premier League in that fashion as a kind of like a replacement type of coach to try to save things, that's the
issue.
That's not what he should have done.
You want to, if you're going to be in that position, you want to take over the team kind of towards the beginning of the year. Very rarely does it work out.
Very end of a year and know that you're going to be like, I'll take it over now. Yeah, we'll just kind of like wrap up the season and then I can build over the summer and step in. Yeah, that's what you want to do. You don't want to take over a team and then hopefully you can get some bodies in there. It's just going to be tough. And, I just didn't see it. I didn't have a lot of confidence in it. I just didn't.
I never had a lot of confidence, and I always felt that it was a rough move for him. And I understand there are only 20 of those jobs available at any one given time. And when you're a manager, you almost are obligated, right?
Yeah, you have to take the job. I don't blame him for taking the job. I just don't think it was.
I don't blame him for taking the job, but I think with so many young managers who are not of this sort of established pedigree, they're grabbing at straws, hoping to be successful at some point in time.
Right.
And they often, you see the stutters throughout the career. Like, unless it's in a way it resembles like the NFL, Stead and G. If you're not from one of these established coaching trees, it gets very hard to break in. And so you've got to get that job that may not be the best situation. And if it works, you're an absolute legend. but
Right.
that's only 10% of the time. The other
Right.
90% of the time, you fail, and then you have to restart over. So now you have a situation where Jesse Marsch is out of a job. He's got to go and rebuild his career. And where's he going to do it, right? He had a perfect gig when he was in sort of the Red Bull system.
Right.
Going from New York to Salzburg to then Leipzig, learning under Ralf Ragnick. They trained him. They thought he was going to be he did a great job. He got some experience managing the Champions League. And let's not forget, he did a really good job in Austria.
Absolutely.
And beyond Austria, like, he was a tough out in the Champions League. They were good.
They were good.
So it is clear to me that man can coach.
Right.
He's going to need to go back and rebuild his brand someplace else. The same with St. Frank Lampard. It was good for one season-ish at Chelsea. Fell off a cliff very quickly. Takes Everton. Barely wins anything ever at Everton. Saves them just by the skin of their teeth, but gets the job. Now they're back in the relegation battle. Gets let go there. They go through that manager carousel, finally ending up with Sam Allardyce, who does keep them up. But then Lampard's back as a caretaker manager at Chelsea, where I don't think he won a game. Yes, Jay.
I don't think so either. You're muted, G.
Yep. It's been a long time. So you said a couple of things. I'm just going to let you guys kind of talk. So Sam Allardyce is one of those coaches that you can't bring in mid-season. He is a Hall of Famer, one of those GOAT kind of coaches. If you want to keep your team up in the Premier League, you hire people like him.
He's the best short order cook you can have as a coach.
And
Marsch can open a fridge and make a meal better than Sam can.
Agree. And Marsch is not that coach. So it really set him up for failure from the very get-go. But one thing that you guys are missing, and kind of brings me and a couple of thoughts that I had to our opening about the American soccer. We're kind of missing some of the conversation about we had a lot of American starters playing in the Premier on that team that did okay. We didn't really hear any name busters coming out of great plays, great assists, great movement, great goal scoring. And these are supposed to be our number one starters right now, and they didn't really do well under American coach.
Aronson got benched. Aronson wasn't starting after a while, yeah.
They were actually, I'm going to disagree. When it was with Marsch, McKinney, Adams, and Aronson were playing, and they were playing pretty well. They just were out of favor once he left because they didn't fit the system that the new coaches had. But
well, I guess if you're doing well, then your coach is staying around, and especially if you're staying in the center of the field, you're controlling. Yes, the only goals that he really scored was on set plays coming off of a header or in the right play.
He's not a scorer. He's a midfielder. He's asked.
I don't know. I guess when I coach soccer and I've watched soccer, a lot of midfielders should be scoring because that's kind of their role as well as forwards.
But he was asked, but that's the thing. He's not a
He's not an attacking midfielder, but they try to play him up there. So again, if you're a starter on any national team that you are kind of upper echelon, that you should have the IQ. And most of those people at that level have played every single position and know what to do at every single position.
I'm not going to put anything on McKinney though, because look, before all of the off the field issues that Juventus was having, McKinney was actually performing adequately well, pretty well for Juventus. He was. But Juventus is a top club. I put more of this blame on the situation at Leeds and the inability to prepare for a change in leadership. They didn't prepare the right way. So if they were going to put Bielsa out, they needed to have certain plans in place to make this successful. Marsch had been there a year, and I can see that they did no better, if not worse, after he left. So it's like the directors didn't do this the right way to keep that team up if that was their only goal. If their goal is to stay up, then they should have hired Big Sam a year ago. That's what I'm saying. It's like I don't want to put this on. I don't want to put this on the players. I really don't think that the players can really take the brunt for the issues that have happened there, because it's hard when you wake up and you go to the field and you don't know what's going to be expected of you. I think that's very difficult.
And look, you guys both said it. Big Sam is the best short order cook. He's the best person. And I don't think that Big Sam gets enough credit for how good he is, because Sam Allardyce, people think like Sam Allardyce has one way of doing business, and that is exactly not the truth. Big Sam gets the best out of his players because he's one of the few coaches out there, few managers out there that'll go in, he will look at what he has in front of him and say, okay, this is what we're going to do.
Agree,
to
1,000,000%.
maximize our strengths and minimize our weaknesses. And I think that he kind of got a raw deal with the England job, because I think that he would have done a fantastic job with them, because he's the type of guy who can look. He would be a great international manager because he can look and say from year to year, this is what I have. This is what I have to work with. So this is how we're going to play.
He needs to come coach the United States.
I would love him to coach the United States.
I would love it. I would get a Big Sam jersey. I'd get a U.S. jersey with Allardyce written on the back. You better believe
I'm not being. I'm not
Kind of a
being
fair Uncle Sam, right there. You have a nickname, and you could be a huge character for advertisement for United States.
I wouldn't look at this as a joke either. I would look at this as, okay, we got somebody who's going to figure out how to get the best out of these kids, and not sit there and think that due to my years at MLS, I know what I'm doing.
And you got something going on there. We need a true experienced coach that can do exactly what you guys just said. Bunch of personalities.
Especially when you're only
and take a step back.
10 games a year.
Yeah,
that's all you're coaching.
I think he would
Hall of
be
Fame,
a
Hall of Fame.
phenomenal international manager for the United States. And I'm not saying this to be pithy. I'm not being sarcastic. I'm actually being dead serious. I think he would go in. He would look at how the guys play. He would look at what their skills are. He would look at what their strengths are. He would come up with a way to maximize their strengths, minimize and safeguard their weaknesses. Now, the thing about Big Sam, why people don't like Big Sam as a full-time manager, is because it's not pretty, right? He doesn't set out to play aesthetically pleasing football. He's not one of these managers who's going to go in and say, I'm going to put in this system, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. He's not a manager who does that. What he says is, he's from kind of that Jose Mourinho school. These games are meant to be won. They're not meant to be played. I don't care if we play defensive football and we hoof the ball downfield and we play long ball. If that's what we're set up to do, and we've got a big striker who can get behind the lines and score goals, that's what we're going to do. If our best move is to play 5 across the back and try and hit on the counterattack through a quick midfield, that's what we're going to do. And it's not something that's going to bring in a lot of people. It's not something that's going to inspire, young players to say, I want to go out and play, be the next, whoever, right? I've never heard a kid say, you know what, when I play football, you know who I really want to be? I want to be the next Virgil van Dijk.
Right.
Because nobody wants to be Kalidou Koulibaly, even though he's essential to a team, because they're defenders and their whole entire gig is being negative. They are most effective when you don't notice what they're doing, because they're just there. Big Sam is going to rely on people like that, because it's not flashy, it's pragmatic. Well, and that's what he did with Everton, and it worked again.
Yeah, but I hope he does. But he's at Leeds now, and
I'm sorry, I brought in Leeds and it didn't work.
Yeah, no, but it worked at Everton. But with the Leeds job, you got to sit there and go, he got a job May 3rd. He had 4 games. I hope he doesn't stay there. I really do. I hope he's like, I came in, you guys paid me, 100,000 pounds, and I'm going to go. I really do. I really do.
And the one thing that you guys also,
and I'd love for him to come to the United States. I would do backflips if he would come to the United States. I would absolutely love it.
But here's the devil's advocate. You're going to lose a lot of fans then, because it's a different sport. American soccer fans love this kind of flashy, and he's not a flash.
No, I disagree.
American soccer fans. Are you? No. I think American.
No.
Listen,
no.
G, you coached American soccer. What do they yell? Kick it up the field. They just want to play booty.
Golasso! Golasso!
I
Golasso!
believe that
We
we
are
will win
Mamo.
games that I can't
Yeah.
stand.
Mamo.
So, no, I think you go get Big Sam. They'll sit there and go, we beat Mexico 1-0, and all of a sudden they think they're going to be some big U.S.
But what's
soccer
the
fans.
difference?
He's going to lose fans, but when we start winning is when now the fan base will come
He's
up.
not
Because
gonna lose.
that's our culture.
He's not going to lose.
I don't
He's
think he'll
not going to
lose
lose a single fan. He would not lose a single fan. In fact, he'd get a bunch in because everybody who is a real United States fan, not a bandwagon fan, would say he's perfect for the job. He's going to come in. He's going to maximize the talent. We're going to be effective. And then we can build from there. Because at no point.
Awesome. Round of 16. Here we come. And that's it.
At no point
I'm such a hater.
has a manager come in and turned us into some sort of free-flowing football team in big games. Like, we've never seen it done. Why would we think that this is, and at this point in time,
Look, we all remember Steve Sampson, right?
yeah,
I mean, come on.
I don't think for a second that we would expect anything like the classic U.S. situation is us expecting Zinedine Zidane to come in and manage this team. And what you're talking about, G, is the disconnect in between the fans of the United States men's national team and the administration of the United States men's national team.
Yeah, fair enough.
The fans would be fine. The administrators think that, oh, this is this great job and that we have the capacity to do this, that, and the third. They're waiting around for Carlo Ancelotti or Zinedine Zidane to walk through the door, and what they should be doing is getting Sam Allardyce in. What they should be doing, and if you don't want to say, okay, we don't want a foreign manager, look.
Yeah, that'll never happen.
We just said Jesse Marsh is an effective manager who needs an opportunity to rebuild his brand. Why don't you hire him? And you got to, look, let's be honest. The fact that Greg Berhalter is in a conversation to get a job at Swansea
Awful.
tells me that even with a non-starter of a campaign for the U.S. men's national team, you can parlay that into an even better opportunity. Anthony Hudson got a full-time job, I think, in the Middle East someplace, right? Off of a couple of nothing games with the U.S. men's national team. The fact that they sat there then and said, you know what, we're really not sure. You can stay here. We might keep you on, but we're really not moving in that direction. And so he left. So we're down to the third choice manager. The third assistant is now who's going to manage this team in these upcoming games.
Yeah,
it's ludicrous.
It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing.
It's embarrassing that they can't. And I understand that the guy that they brought in is still working for Southampton, but like he's a director at Southampton, a team that just got relegated. And I understand why they might like him. Like, Southampton had a number of good seasons. He was in charge of the youth team at a point in time where they developed the likes of Gareth Bale, the likes of James Ward-Prowse, Luke Shaw, some of those guys, right? So, yeah, we all know the story of the Southampton Academy and the pipeline that they had. But my question, gentlemen, is who was the last great youth player from Southampton?
Youth player. Sadio Mane? No, he wasn't there as a youth.
No, they bought it.
Yeah, they bought him. Yeah.
But who was the last great,
Was it Walcott? Theo Walcott?
I think it's Gareth Bale.
Adam Lallana and Luke Shaw both came after them, but I'm just saying, and James Ward-Prowse has been a serviceable player.
Well, yeah. James Ward-Prowse is solid. Yeah, he's a damn good player.
But I'm just saying,
they're not churning out
they're not turning out players like they used to.
No, they're not.
They're not
mid-levels.
Yeah,
they're just not churning out these players like they used to. So it's It's the classic U.S. I feel like it's almost the classic U.S. move. We're gonna hire you. We're gonna ignore what happened most recently, but 10 years ago, look what they did.
Right.
So
Yeah.
but let's
USA.
let's totally change the tack of this conversation and talk about y'all's team, Arsenal, who do finish in second. And I know it's the stat is out there. No team has ever spent as much time at the top of the Premier League and not won as Arsenal did this season. And it's going to be when you look back, it was a tough one. It was a tough end of the season because it was there. They looked like, and then they had it, and they just weren't able to keep it. To me, it was a lot like watching a longer version of the Eagles and my Eagles in the Super Bowl. You can only fend off that juggernaut for so long.
Which time with the Eagles in the Super Bowl? Which one are you talking about? Because there are many times losing and.
Well, okay. This wasn't the one. This wasn't the one where we threw up on the 3-yard line. I'm talking about when we had to lead at halftime.
This is when they played the Bears. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry.
Wait, no, that only happened twice.
with Sexy Rexy, but
hey, you know what? But we're still holding on to that 1985 like you wouldn't believe. That's still in cold culture.
Yeah,
40 years later, we need to get rid of it. So
how old was he? Like 6, 7? I think that's all we were.
7, yeah.
I would like to remind you, G, right now that the Eagles have as many Super Bowl wins as the Bears do.
Nice.
One, but I think we have more appearances.
Yeah.
You do.
More, I think.
But kind of to piggyback what you're saying. Yeah, it was a tough way to end the season. However, this is a season that we had one of the youngest teams in the Premier League going this deep and holding the first place against this machine of Man City for so long. Like major props, and a lot of us over in the Arsenal text. We're saying some of the, I don't know, it's like half and half, or 3 quarters and 1 quarter. But 1 quarter was kind of like, hey, we're excited about this. Like, this is real cool. Never thought we would be even first place for this long. The other half are pissed off that we lost it. So, but, end of the day, we are back in the Champions League, and ultimately we're getting more money to stay up there, to maintain our top 4, to get back where we're supposed to get. Now with that extra money, we'll get our better players. We're going to clean up some areas in the midfield. But it's such a dream season, and definitely it was a great way. And like I said in the very beginning, I can see what finally Arteta's doing, because now we see that the goal was, top 2, top 3. Now next year should be winning it. We have the success right now. We get some of the older players out. We get some new blood in. Hopefully they'll fit in just perfectly. But we should be winning it next year.
Yeah, my take on this season is basically that, we had some bad draws, but I think we just witnessed that City turned into the team that we all thought they would be. And that's the first thing. The second thing, though, is Arsenal's biggest problem since probably the last 20 years has been the physio department. This team laps the field when it comes to the number of games missed due to injury. And when you don't have the depth at center back that you need, it's what happened to Liverpool. I mean, Liverpool, when all of their center backs went out, they still had a relatively decent season. Look, had we not lost Tomiyasu and Saliba, I think Arsenal would have won the league. But by losing both of those players, like it would have been better for us to lose Ben White than to lose Tomiyasu or to lose Saliba. Because if you lose Ben White, Tomiyasu slides in and can play right back. If you lose Saliba, Tomiyasu can slide in and play center back as well, because he's shown he's a very effective center back. He's probably the second or third best out-and-out defender on that team. So had you not, because Arsenal had a lot of games where they dropped points due to teams were coming back and scoring against them. So had that not occurred, I think Arsenal would have won the league. But that being said, injuries are a part of the game. But look, Rob Holding, you have been a fantastic soldier. I am not going to say anything overtly negative about your play or your service to the team. But at this stage of Arsenal's redevelopment, I just don't think he's the player that we need right now. And I think putting him in really, really caused the defense to struggle. Because as you can see, Arsenal had no problem scoring goals. No problem scoring goals. They scored 88 goals this season.
Which is phenomenal. Like, see that plus 40. We haven't seen that in years and everything. But Ben White.
City only scored 6 more, and that's City. They had a guy that scored 36 goals this year. So, I mean, come on.
With Rob Holding, he might be a good, hey, we're going to keep you around like for FA Cup kind of games, but use you as a leader. But besides that, he's kind of worthless dead weight as of right now. Like you said, thank you, but now you don't really in the vision anymore, so see ya.
You're a good defender for a team that's looking to finish 6th or 7th, trying to hopefully qualify for Europe. You're not good enough for a team that's trying to win the league. And I don't like dumping on players. I don't like doing it. I just think that he just doesn't have the physicality that he needs to be able to compete at that level anymore.
Agreed.
In the system that Arteta likes to run.
And it's very obvious that he's the weakest of all of them. Even the stuff that coming off the bench, he still seems like he's the weakest. Even if he's starting, he's got 3 games in a row. He just seems like he's lost out there. Yeah. Like he'll have a great game, but then he'll have a 5 minutes of just fartness, and he'll just let in like 2 goals or a bad pass that might lead to a goal. Like he has these just like dumb moments. And at this stage of the game, everyone must be turning 100% and be focused and turned on the entire game. He's not there anymore.
London Sean brought up a really good point to us when we were talking offline, and he said, Manchester City are an absolute beast.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the reason is because behind their starting 11, they have another 11 that is highly capable of winning a championship by itself.
Mm-hmm.
If Ruben Diaz goes down, they can bring in a John Stones. If John Stones goes down, they can bring in an Aymeric Laporte. Or Nathan Ake, and they've got Manuel Akanji on there. You guys are talking about where do you go after Saliba? And let's give credit to William Saliba. Developed leaps and bounds.
Unbelievable development. Unbelievable development.
Fit just well, yeah.
Would not leave this season. I mean, if there was an award for most improved player, he would be high in the running for it with his development.
He even got a call up to the French national team because of it.
Yeah.
Never didn't play, but he called up.
When he goes down, Tomiyasu, who was a right back, remember, or left back, who we thought
right
moves in the center, and we like him in that central defensive role. But, when they go down, you got the aforementioned Rob Holding, who's got to come off the bench and come in. And so it's just for you to be able to sustain a charge right now, and it has a lot to do with the team that City is.
Yep.
Right? You just have to have either A, perfect health.
Yep.
Impossible.
Or B, such incredible squad depth that you basically have, your 1 through 28 are just capable of basically being.
But that's what Pep did. He built that team to go so deep in every single tournament and go so deep in the EPL. It doesn't matter who comes off the bench. You're gonna fit in just well. And they're talking about Gugawan coming over to Arsenal. People are like, oh, we don't want the old scraps. I'll take any scraps coming off of Man City on my team anytime. And you're starting. Here's the uniform. Here's the captain armband. Enjoy. I'll take their 32-year-old scraps any day.
Yeah.
And they're gonna
but we're also talking about. They said that he's got there's something behind him that's coming up who might be even better.
Yep.
You have a title chase going on.
Fine.
You have a title chase going on, and your big January addition at that time was Jorginho. Right.
Yep. Who was funny is Jorginho actually played well.
Yeah,
and took a good player away from Chelsea.
But again, it goes down to how deep can you actually build your squad?
Yep.
And the fact that
that's
Arsenal,
the Pep recipe.
Yeah, but the fact that Arsenal hasn't been able to do so because they haven't had that Europe money. They just haven't had
Agree.
it. And you have an owner that doesn't care that much.
No, he wants it to be a self-fulfilling, but he is like so many of these managers over there outside of Man City, where they want it to be a self-funding process, right?
Mhm.
You should be able to get quality players. And this is where we have that great division in between the state clubs and everybody else,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Because you have PSG and Manchester City out there, and we are unfortunate to have teams in a league that has a state finance club. No matter what they say, no matter what
Mhm.
Larry says, they are a state-run
Mhm.
finance club,
Absolutely.
right?
Mhm.
Those owners do not care about where the income comes
No.
from.
It's
In
funny.
fact,
Didn't they get caught twice within the last 5, 6, 7 years with spending too much money and some financial issues,
mhm.
and they get a slap in the wrist and they keep on winning
What-
championships. So is it worth it getting
yeah, because
caught?
I mean, but that's
Nothing happens.
if you have the money, and
Mhm.
the Premier League's so mad at Manchester City for what they did, they're scrutinizing Newcastle.
Right. Mhm.
All right, so that's
Mhm.
the only thing that you got going on is like, okay, well, we can't do anything about them. They're just going to keep doing what they're doing.
You're
So
the
we're
next
going to keep
closest
an
team
eye.
like them. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're the next thing. So we'll keep an eye on you.
Yeah, but see how
But the
effective they
fact
are
of the
because
matter,
I think Newcastle's pockets are deeper than City's now.
Newcastle's pockets are deeper than City's.
Yeah, I mean that's
But
Saudi Arabia.
Really?
That's an even bigger country.
Huge country.
No
Yeah.
crap.
Yeah, and but the issue with them is like they are not going to be able to just go out and buy an Erling Haaland.
Mhm.
They're
Mhm.
not going to be able to go out and have a bench that has 200,000 pound a week players
Mhm.
on their reserve cup team
Mhm.
because it's just not going to work like that, right?
Right.
City has to jump on them, and the Emirates can kind of just to the
Yeah.
Saudis and say, we got you on this one.
Yeah.
But the rest of us, where you deal with the owners who are self-financing this club, it is based on what you can spend what you make, right?
But they're making a shit ton of money because they're going so deep in the playoffs, and they're getting extra money by going deeper and deeper and deeper into these playoffs, and then they're winning these championships. They're making a crap ton of money. So yeah, I can see that they have a good recipe.
That's why like Liverpool was able to do it because they were able to get the players. And look, to be honest, Mo Salah and Sadio Mane were not super expensive purchases, but
No,
the
they
minute that
weren't.
they got those guys in, and all of a sudden it looked like, okay, they built from, let's be honest, they built from the scrap heap. They scouted well. Their biggest purchase was Virgil van Dijk and Alisson. Those were the biggest two purchases.
And they seem to be worth every penny that they
once
spend.
they got rid of Coutinho, once they sold him, got that money, they just hired Alisson and someone
But
else,
even-
and they just took off from there.
Even the Coutinho money, even what they paid for Coutinho when they brought him in from Inter was like 30 million.
Yeah, and the same thing with Luis Suarez, because Luis Suarez wasn't expensive either. But this is the fear, though, at least from an Arsenal perspective, that you have to take into account. I understand why the Arsenal fans were kind of split on this, because there is a legitimate concern that you have to win on a year when the other team happens to have a little bit of slip up at the beginning, because they're just going to keep recharging to the point that you can't compete with that anymore. This could be Arsenal's that could have been their best shot. You never know.
It could be, and we
may go back to that team that is consistently top four, but really doesn't smell the title, because that's what Arsenal was for a decade. That could easily be coming back, where we're hoping that.
But I think it's a different thing, right?
I don't think it. But I worry that City is just going to turn into a situation where it's just going to be impossible to compete, and you're 2 injuries away from just being like, okay, we're out. Because which team isn't in that situation? That's not Manchester City.
But that's the thing with everybody is
that's everybody. So City is just going to keep churning.
City is going to be, and as much as I hate to say it, as long as Pep is there, as long as City is City right now, because he has raised the profile of the club so much. Just with this president, that City is going to be unless these 110 charges get meted out, City is going to be to the English Premier League what Bayern is to the Bundesliga.
The Premier League is going to become the Bundesliga. I'm so fearful of that, but
But
Come
the
on.
only
How
issue,
could they?
the biggest
How could
problem
it
with
not
that,
happen?
But how can you hate
But-
that?
but I think the bigger problem with that is for the Premier League, because one of the reasons why the Premier League became so popular was because there was a sense of competition. As good as Manchester United was during the advent of the Premier League, they didn't win it every year.
And
In
they
fact-
were not running away with it every year either. They weren't looked at this team that is going to beat you by 15 goals every year. That
But
didn't.
that's the
They
thing. If
did
the
win a
Premier
lot,
League,
but the Arsenal was able to compete. Chelsea was able to compete. Newcastle was able to compete. Liverpool was able to compete. All these clubs were able, even if
Blackburn.
they didn't win, Blackburn. But even if they didn't win, those clubs were able to compete. Now we're looking at a
but
point
what
where
makes the Premier League? What makes the
City's
Premier League?
toughest game this year when it came into the title was like, wow, they're going to beat Arsenal. Everybody knew they were going to kill Arsenal. Everybody knew that. You knew once they got that gel working, because that was a relatively new configuration they put together. You knew they were going to kill them, and they did. It wasn't even a competitive game.
But back to my point is though, if
We're going to see
turns into-
Bundesliga.
it-
It's going to be Serie A
but
when
if
Juve
it
was
turn-
doing what they were doing.
if it turns into but what happens? What makes the Premier League work right now is the television revenue that they are able to get. But if the league becomes not competitive, if we get a situation where City starts to go 6 years, 7 years,
Mhm.
8 years without, the jumps in television revenue are not going to be there
No.
because companies are not going to pay the amount of money that they want to keep broadcasting something that is non-competitive, right?
And plus,
And
you've seen
stuff-
that movie, that rerun 1,000 times. It gets boring. You can only
It
sell it
gets
for so
boring.
long.
So
And
the only people who are going to be watching it at this point in time are people who are devoted fans of the Premier League because there is no competition. The Premier League loves to bill itself as every week of every season there is something to watch. There is drama. They got lucky this year that there was drama in the relegation race, but you can't keep making hundreds
Arsenal
of
punched way
billions of
above their weight.
dollars. But you can't make hundreds of millions of dollars. You can't ask for $2 billion and sell, you know what? On the last weekend of the season, what you really want to tune in to see is what happens to the 3 worst teams in the league.
I love seeing Leicester City actually get relegated. I don't know about anyone
Yeah,
else, but I
but
absolutely
I-
love
I'm
it.
saying-
So.
I know, but that's not a selling point. And the fact that you
That's
don't
not
want,
a selling
I mean, and even the sad thing is, like, outside of the champion who wins, the next exciting thing really is actually who gets relegated. And then after that, it's okay who qualifies for Europe. But oftentimes, second and third is already established. You might have a
Agree.
play for fourth and see who gets Champions League.
Yeah, but you want it to
No
go
one's tune in
to
to see who's going to get the Europa League spot.
And some of those are the best games are the lower tiers. You know, the last 15 through 20. They're the best games in the last month of the season. They're fighting for everything.
But that's not going to get the new fan. That's not going to get the fan
But
that is
even
not
in
that likes soccer, but doesn't do a podcast.
even- even in 2007, the race went down with Manchester United and Chelsea, right? And you came down to a point, and there was a point in March or late April, early May, right before the end of the season, where it had looked like Manchester United and Chelsea had a legitimate point to play each other 3 times in a month for everything that mattered in English football. Now, it so happened that Chelsea slipped up and United won the league before they played, but there was still the FA Cup and the possibility of the Champions League. You still had that drama. That was what that they were able to sell, right? The City Arsenal game was in late April, early March, or late March, early April. Like it was early. And so after that, it was done. And it became not if, but when. And you can't keep selling that. And I'm not talking as a guy, like I'm gonna watch because I like United. I'm gonna watch because that's what I do. But you can't sell subscriptions. You can't raise prices. You can't do what they are looking to do if you don't have a product to sell, and if your product to sell is Manchester City and 19 other teams, it's not going to work for much longer, right? No. And then all you're going to get is the
streaming deal on ESPN.
You're going to get a streaming deal on ESPN and talk about a European Super League again.
Right.
You know,
right, gentlemen.
And it even goes back to the Bundesliga. Like, they gave Byron the trophy. Like how boring is that? And you're trying to sell that? Like, they're trying to give away the trophy, and they can't. It's like, there's no competition whatsoever. Like, how can you sell that league when you just throw it away, just give it to them every single year? So.
And with that, we welcome in our good friend Byron Robb.
We'll see you, G. Thanks for coming on, brother.
Than's for coming on, G.
All right, guys. Good seeing you guys.
We've also got waiting in the wings, Professor Matt. But Byron Robb, hey, you gotta love G. I mean, the man makes an entrance and the man makes an exit. That is a man who knows how to enter and leave a room. There are people who
Coach G is like the inverse of me. Like, he can't stand the men's national team. Despite Italy, not making World Cups, cannot stand the Bundesliga, even though it's like my passion. I'm a club member. I run a fan club and all that. So yeah, Coach G, watch. I'm gonna visit Coach G in NOLA one day in New Orleans. Sorry, no one calls it NOLA. New Orleans, and we're gonna be like the bestest of friends ever. But
you're gonna be the bestest of friends because Coach G is awesome. But I understand where you're coming from. But that was just G making an exit.
Oh, yeah. I totally agree.
And so, first and foremost, Byron Robb, how was Peru?
Peru was lovely. I didn't do too much touristy stuff. I just went to visit family for a little bit, and just help my grandma come back, because she doesn't understand, she's older, and she doesn't understand, navigating her way around the airport. So to help her out. So, but the one footy thing I did, besides actually playing, I actually played footy in Peru, and it's kind of intense. But the one footy thing I did was I did meet up with the Peru fan club of Bayern down there. That was fun. and got to watch us get spanked by Leipzig. That was not fun either, including Conrad Leimer, who's going to be announced any minute now, going to Bayern on a free. But no, he had to score against us and all that jazz. So yeah, no. So I had fun. Definitely did.
All right. Have y'all gotten your bar back?
What do you? Well, look. What do you mean our bar? Like, because it's always been our bar, even though.
But I heard that they locked y'all out.
Oh no! So all right. So in that case, it was the owner is going through the divorce, and there were some issues with the licensing. So they the ex-wife had the liquor license suspended, so they couldn't open. Yeah, so we got that all figured out, and we had a grand old time. The one side of the bar had Bayern, the other side of the bar had Dortmund, and we had a fun little game. I actually have a pillow. Let me bring it out over here. I have a pillow that has a Meisterschale on one end, and then the logo on the other end. So I brought this, and so what we were doing was because Dortmund started off the day with the title, so they were able to. We put this on their side of the bar to start, and then when Bayern scored the first goal of the between both matches, we took the pillow back because it has a Meisterschale on it. And then when Cologne scored the tie, Dortmund were now in the lead again, so I had to get the pillow back for a little bit. So we were doing that nice little fun thing over there. It was kind of a fun thing with the Dortmund crew.
Although we have talked about the fact that the Bundesliga is not the most exciting league in terms of winners, right? This is the 11th straight, for Bayern. It certainly had the most dramatic end to the season. Even as the devoted Bayern fan that I know you to be and enjoy, you got to be thinking to yourself, you guys didn't win this, you were given it.
Oh, no doubt. No, of course. And there's been titles all over the Bundesliga that have been the same way, where it's been given to us on the last day. It's happened, and but the trophy is a trophy. At the end of the day, we held off. We score more goals. We won in goal difference, and by a lot, and that's the way it works. And so we celebrated as such. And I will tell you, it was nerve-wracking, and I'm not used to being, nervous on the last match day, for the last 11 years. So it was a definitely new experience. But yeah, no, in typical Bayern fashion, in very typical Bayern fashion, around the whistle, after the final whistle happened, we all got the word that instead of Bloody Monday or Black Monday, when coaches get fired, it became Bloody Saturday afternoon, with the sacking of Hassan Salihamidzic, aka Brazo, and Oliver Kahn. So that's a whole thing in itself, and I can explain more, later on.
Actually, I wanted you to, because my feeling on this one was that the team had to look around after it and say, okay, although this was a season that ended up with a title, you can't be satisfied with how it went down. And if you are going, much like Everton can sit back and say, okay, we stayed up, but you can't be comfortable because, for them, it's 2 years at this place where they're competing against relegation. This has been a topsy-turvy season. This was a season where, for all intents and purposes, the title was going to Dortmund. It was an early and unexpectedly early exit. There was a lot of drama with Neuer, with older figures, having to get rid of a manager at an unexpected time in the middle of the season, right before an important Champions League match, which requires you to turn to Thomas Tuchel, who's, I'm going to be real honest, I don't think is somebody who they actually really wanted to bring in, but felt like they had to, given his track record with management. You have the drama between Leroy Sané and Sadio Mane, who was your big purchase, right? You can't, as a Bayern member, be satisfied with how that season looked. And as the people who run the club, they've got to look and say, look, this is no good. We've got to do something to right this ship. And so do you feel like the decisions to let the people who they let go is a step in that direction?
Yeah. Consequences had to have happened here. So look, for all the reasons that Julian Nagelsmann should have been sacked, his issues with Neuer, his relationship with the Bild reporter, letting in the foxes to the hen house, doing kind of little childish things that Bayern don't consider becoming of a manager, but like riding the skateboard and all these fun little things that he did. And Nagelsmann's a child; he's still young for a manager. He's very young. He, for all of that, he lost his top keeper. He lost a number 9 that they have not replaced. I'm sorry, Sadio Mane is not a number 9, and Professor Matt understands this full well. They played him there at Liverpool, but he's not a 9. Okay. And then and then Bayern were still in all 3 competitions that mattered to them: the league, the Pokal, and the Champions League, and had a great record in the Champions League. And topped the group in the group stage. And Barcelona, Inter, who, by the way, Inter are going to the final. Okay, okay, hear that out. Okay, and then the whole thing about the treble is in danger, right? And then what happens when you bring in Thomas Tuchel, who, by the way, I think they hired because they were afraid he was going to go to Madrid or somewhere else or whatnot. So they had to make a change right away. Then he gets knocked out of Champions League, gets knocked out of the Pokal, has barely wins the league. I'm sorry. Those are consequences. And for Bayern, despite winning the league in the last match day in dramatic fashion, it's not good enough. And so you saw, Bayern do not rest on their laurels. Pretty much they said, you know what? We got this wrong. We're going to make changes. Not good enough. So when 2012 happened, with the massacre versus Chelsea, they made changes. A lot of changes happened. They started. They got Lewandowski. They brought Javi Martinez. All that. So they brought Pep in. They didn't want that ever again, right? So and Oliver Kahn had to go. Now, a little more to the story here. So Thomas Tuchel found out on Friday. The players had no idea after the game, until a reporter asked them after the game. Salihamidzic took it in stride. He said, fine, I'll sign my termination papers. I will be a good soldier. He loves the club. He's a Champions League winner at the club, all that, right? Oliver Kahn, on the other hand, did not take it as well, as you kind of expect, considering his personality.
Well, he's a club legend, and his personality tells me that he would not.
No. Yeah,
go
he was very angry about it. Tried to throw Salihamidzic under the bus, saying he's to blame. He did not sign his termination papers, and because of that, Oliver Kahn was not allowed to go to the stadium versus at Cologne, but Brazo Salihamidzic was. So, but he was there kind of as a private citizen. He was there to thank the players, but Oliver Kahn was nowhere to be found. He will be welcomed back eventually. He is a club legend, like you said. They'll put an ambassador tag on him. But it's going to take time to heal. And the good old guard of Rummenigge and Uli Hoeneß is back. Much older though, but they're back.
Well, and this is the thing. You can say the good old guard of Uli Hoeneß and Rummenigge are back. But the one thing that they bring is a little bit of stability to the club, which may be necessary, because what do you have left after this? You are a team that has needs, but you are also a team that barely won a title and has a manager who's prone to self-implosion after about a year in charge. Which means that you have a manager who's going into a transfer window when this is what tends to set him off the most. He is not the chances. What are the chances of Thomas Tuchel getting every player that he wants in this transfer window?
He's going to want a lot. He's not going to get all of it, because just Bayern are not made out of petrodollars. But Bayern will spend. They will spend this summer. They see this close title race as unacceptable, and they were like, you know what? No, we need to do something. We're past the point where we have to count the pennies in the sofa because of COVID and look for more euros in the Lederhosen. And no, we're not there anymore. This club is stable. The club has money coming in, and they're very fiscally responsible, so they're going to really spend some money here. The question is, who's going to want to come to Bayern? And I know there's names being tossed around. The Harry Kane thing was tossed around, but I think once Salihamidzic left, that was over. So they had to restart renegotiating.
Harry Kane doesn't want to go. Harry Kane has already said he doesn't want to leave England this year.
And I do not blame him. He's a family man. He wants the record. It is very tough. It's very tough to go from England, and after you spend so many years in the Premier League, to go to Germany, new language, new culture, all that. Declan Rice is another option we saw, potentially taking over as more of a sixth role.
But he wants to go to Arsenal.
Yeah, that's
he wants
to
go to Arsenal.
Exactly, and even that is gonna be money. So. Tuchel's not going to get everything he wants, because Bayern, while it's an attractive option, people in England, unless you're a young Englishman who's not getting minutes at your club, Jude Bellingham or Jadon Sancho, those folks, they don't leave. They stay behind unless you're starving for minutes. So it's gonna be really tricky to see who they get, who's available, who's gonna, because and now the word is out. Bayern wants a number 9. Everybody's gonna up the price because they know they need a number 9, and a 6, and a fullback, and potentially another center back because Pavard wants to go as well. Lucas apparently is on his way out as well, potentially wanting to go to PSG in the petrodollars. So yeah, I mean, Tuchel, it has a wish list, but it's not going to get filled. And the question is, can he sort of, is he going to be okay not getting everything he wants without imploding? And look, mark my words, within the next 5 years, Julian Nagelsmann will be back.
I would not be surprised if Julian Nagelsmann is back if he does not already get a job, because, listen, I have said, I think Thomas Tuchel really is a talented manager. I think that he has a knack for understanding the game and being able to coach it that is really top notch. And I think he's shown it at his big stops. I think he demonstrated it with getting the Borussia Dortmund team as far as he did there. I think he is still the only manager to get PSG to a Champions League final. He won a Champions League with an understrength Chelsea team against Pep Guardiola, right? I think he is a fantastic manager. But there's one thing about Thomas Tuchel is those demons that he has, that oppositional defiant disorder, that distaste for authority, and his pettiness will have, at every point in time that we've seen, caused him to implode. He's not going to get everything. And his last couple of stops, both PSG and Chelsea, have been characterized by this. Either A, he doesn't get the player that he really wants in the transfer window, or B, he gets a player that he doesn't necessarily want. And in each case, he starts to get petty and does these passive-aggressive microaggressions towards an ownership that sour them on him, and he breaks that relationship down. And if there's one thing I know about Uli Hoeneß and Karl-Heinz Rummenigge, they're not going to tolerate that long, compounded by the fact that this is not their guy. They did not bring him in. And if I'm not mistaken, Rob, wasn't it Uli Hoeneß himself who won a treble?
No, so just going back real quick. So I want to play devil's advocate with Thomas Tuchel. And my only thing is Thomas Tuchel is that I think if a couple things. I think he's matured a little bit. He's gotten older, so you hope he.
When?
Wait, hold on a second. I'm playing devil's advocate. There's a whole bear with me. I think he's gotten older, number one. But number two, I think the figures of the club, like Rummenigge and like Uli Hoeneß, I think he might respect those figures more than the people in charge over at PSG and Chelsea and even Dortmund. I think there's a certain aura to those figures. And you got to remember, Thomas Tuchel is from Bavaria, right? So, for all I know, potentially this is a job he really wanted one day. He's got it. He has now kind of like these legendary father figure statuses at the club back. So potentially, and you're right. Look, totally agree, Mike. Tuchel is not their guy. Now Tuchel was interviewed early on before, and I forget when exactly it was, but Tuchel was this is I think after the Dortmund job. He was seen in Munich when there was a coaching situation. I think it was around Carlo, when Carlo got sacked. And they brought Joe Heynckes back. But Thomas Tuchel was approached, and he didn't come to terms somehow. So and just a small sidebar. It seems like forever, like a lifetime ago, that Thomas Tuchel and Antonio Conte got into the handshaking thing, and it seems like a lifetime ago that Leeds were going at it at Chelsea and getting that big win early on in the season. It feels like forever, right? It's like the football world has changed drastically. It's chaotic. It's a game that we love.
That's what I love about it. So, I mean, Professor Matt was chuckling when I said, like, dude is in his 40s. He's been out of a job for 6 months. Apparently, what did he pull on Aaron Rodgers' darkness retreat? He go and sit in a cave and smoke ayahuasca in a cave in southern Mexico and suddenly emerged a changed man.
Hey, ayahuasca is awesome.
All right, to quote the great Latin authors, can a leopard change its spots? Like, he's going to have to prove it to me, gentlemen. Like, and again, this comes from a place of love and respect. Like, I really do think he is a talented manager. I just think he's a dude who is an 18-month solution to a problem. And if you hire him, you have to know in the back of your mind that within 12 to 18 months, he's going to implode, and you're going to have a plan beyond that. Kind of like Jose Mourinho, right? Now, he's talking about leaving Roma after 3 seasons, which is the Jose Mourinho special. You know, he lost the Europa League, but there's talk of him going to PSG, right? And you got to know when you get Jose Mourinho that, yeah, he will win you stuff. He will get you to finals. He will make you a competitive team. But he's going to, you got 3 years. You got 3 years max, right? The one thing I will say about him at Roma that I haven't seen in previous stops at Spurs or United or Chelsea was he didn't burn down everything and salt the earth behind him this time like he has in the past.
He seems to be enjoying himself at Roma too. It seems like he's having a bit more fun, and he seems to be closer with his players than he was in England.
There's no mutiny, which is different.
Yeah,
but he stacked that team with his guys.
Yeah, but that's okay. That's okay. I mean, he's
got a much older team. Like, did you see how many of those players have strong links to him? Tammy Abraham would have played with him at Chelsea when he was there. Nemanja Matic, Chris Smalling. These are all guys that he brought with him from Manchester United. There are just so many Jose guys.
Yeah.
Throughout that, number one. Number two, I think the pace of everything in Italy suits him a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's not the same sort of grind and scrutiny and stuff like that he's faced in. You know, at the end of the day, win, lose, or draw, as long as he's somewhat successful, he can go down. He can get a bowl of pasta and a great glass of wine. By the way, Jose, if you're listening, I highly suggest La Vecchio Alfaro in the Fiumicino section by the airport. I believe we last checked about 6 months ago. It was still open. Still the single best meal I've ever had in my entire life. So, Jose, if you are listening and you have a chance, please go out there. And the chef, who speaks absolutely no English, and I don't know his name, is a huge Roma fan and would probably crap himself if you showed up. Anyway, I just think that everything that suits him a little bit more. I would like him to stay there because one of my things is, you know, Italy may not be the top of the leagues right now, but it is still a top 4 league.
Mm-hmm.
Some coaches, some players find their best place in La Liga. And that's where they're going to be successful. Like we see Tammy Abraham right now, tearing it up for Roma.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're talking about bringing him back to the Premier League, a needy team with a need for a striker may go and look at him if you are, like we said, Harry Kane most likely not leaving Spurs. He's going to see out the last 12 months of his contract, leave for free, but he's not leaving this year. As far as number nines go outside of that, you've got Victor Osimhen, who's going to cost 140 million and 140 million at one time because De Laurentiis has taken all of that money, right? He is not playing with you and your payments. He wants his money. He wants it now, and he ain't playing with you. So unless you have 140 million right now to stump up for him, you're not having that conversation. Gentlemen, after that, who's there?
Maybe Vlahovic, the Serbian kid.
Which, by the way, the Serbian kid has questionable issues, right wing wise, that don't fly with Bayern. If you catch my drift.
He has some right wing issues, and Juve is iffy on whether or not they're going to sell him. And we are joined by Chelsea Mike as he adjusts his hair. It looks ever increasingly like a broke man's Bob Dylan every time.
He's been in darkness for the whole season. The only shining bright light is named Sam Kerr.
I was going to say, we can't get through the day without talking about Chelsea's season. We have to talk about Chelsea's
but we
season.
have plenty. We have time. We have time.
Come on. We got plenty of time, but geez,
yeah, we do have to talk about.
The number of shade that Chelsea fans have thrown this year at every other team that they have to face is just unprecedented. And it's so funny because your response is like, well, look at you guys. And they're like, I'm throwing more shade at my own club than I'm even throwing at you. That's how rough things must be for a Chelsea fan right now, that they just have to hate everything and everything that has to do with football, that has to do with men's football, I should say.
So we want to murder all the things. I hate everything. I hate it all.
There's plenty of time to jump all over Chelsea, just like every other team in the Premier League has.
Just to finish up, wrapping up the Bundesliga stuff.
But I wanted to know, who is the number 9 though? Because my point was Tammy Abraham may become an attractive proposition for a lot of people, but he's a guy I think is best served by being where he is. Chris Smalling has been a dominant center back for Roma, and everybody in the Europa League finals was singing his praises about his aerial ability and everything that he was doing.
Talk about resurrecting your career too, man.
Yeah,
Good on you, Chris Smalling. Good on you, brother.
But I think
I'm happy for him.
I'm happy for him, but I'm like, you also need to recognize, right now, you're in a situation, you're in a league, you're playing at a place with a manager where everything's working for you.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you're getting paid, stay.
Mm-hmm.
Don't move. The grass is not always greener.
Food is better too.
And Rome is a great town. I love Rome. That place is great.
There's no problem. I mean, you get
beautiful women.
What do you get? You get 3 or 4 visits to northern Italy every year. The only problem with Rome is the traffic.
Yeah, but when you got money, I mean, whatever. Someone's gonna drive you anyway.
Yeah, everybody, and he's a Roman player, so everybody will drive him anyway.
Exactly. He could just stand on the side of the road. Hey, I gotta get to the stadium. They'll be like, hey, get on in.
Have you ever seen the video of the Ireland national team in the bus and a police escort?
No.
You got to watch this on YouTube because this little Italian Cabinieri in his little smart car leading his bus. And this dude was not playing with your traffic. He was going to run everybody off the road. His bus was getting there. The problem was every once in a while, he forgot the bus didn't move as fast as he did.
I'll have to watch that one. That looks funny.
Ireland rugby bus ride through Rome is fantastic. Yes. So my point being, sometimes you need to stick and stay where you're at, right? And number one, number two, it's going to be a very interesting window. So, Rob, before we get to Eastern Europe and our last segment, which will be pile on Chelsea time. Anything else you wanted to talk about with regards to the Bundesliga?
So there will be Champions League football in Berlin. It will not be at Hertha. It will be at Union Berlin. They don't know if they're going to play their Champions League matches in their home stadium or they're going to Hertha Stadium, the Olympiastadion. Hertha have officially been relegated. So as Schalke, bye-bye Schalke. Stuttgart is currently in the playoff with Hamburg, and that started today, and Stuttgart won 3-0. So Hamburg is now well done. There's no away goals for that two-legged tie. But Stuttgart, managed by Sebastian Hoeneß, who I know him as the manager who won the Dry Liga title with Bayern too. So, and he's also Bayern royalty over there.
Who's coming up from Bundesliga too?
Okay, so I believe you got. So that's a whole thing in itself too, right? So if you, yes, this past weekend was kind of chaotic when it comes to the Bundesliga. So let me double check that real quick. I think did Darmstadt come up? I'm not exactly sure.
Darmstadt, I remember as being a pretty good U.S. military town instead.
Okay. So Heidenheim came up.
Oh, Heidenheim too.
Heidenheim came up. Darmstadt is also up automatically, and Hamburg is currently in the playoff. So Heidenheim was on the verge of being in the playoff, and Hamburg was going to be win the league or make or whatnot. But that actually changed. Hamburg blew it. They should have won. But then Heidenheim scored 2 goals in extra time. Hamburg thought they stormed the pitch initially, and then the Heidenheim game did not finish yet. And thus, Heidenheim scored 2 goals, and then look what happened. Hamburg's in the playoff, and now it looks like they're not going to make it out of the second Bundesliga. They'll be staying there, and St. Pauli will welcome them with open arms for their derby again. Darmstadt is back. Heidenheim has not been there in a while, so it's fun to see them again. And they have had some good pokal campaigns. They can play with some big boys. I mean, consistently, I don't think so. They'll probably be an early contender to go back down. So those that's been the fun thing when the Bundesliga, and Freiburg and by the way, I think there is we don't know the final European slots yet because if Frankfurt win the Pokal against Leipzig, I believe Frankfurt get a Europa League spot as well. So you'll have 7 teams from the Bundesliga in Europe, with Leverkusen being the one over in the Europa Conference. And the only thing I'm waiting for, big transfers for the Bundesliga real quick. The only one that we're waiting on officially is Nkunku going to Chelsea. Not been announced yet. We're waiting any minute now. Probably will be announced after the Pokal this Saturday. So the Bundesliga season has been beautiful. I loved it. I was nervous for a good 60 minutes. Jamal Musiala was great. Y'all should listen to The Call by Derek Gray. I think it's better than the Aguero. Sorry, Premier League fans, whatever. I'm tired of your petrodollars. Love the league. And can't wait to do it again next year.
Yep, Christopher Nkunku, just what Chelsea needs, another winger.
Hey, Rob, is Schalke going to hire Coach G and Coach Matt again this
season?
Should. Back down
they should.
Yeah.
Hey, last time they did. Last time they
did, brought him back up. I gotta tell Coach Matt, break out the jerseys again, man. Y'all gotta get back on it.
Yeah, but put tape over Gazprom this time. I know they got the best Gazprom. We don't deal with that company no more.
Yeah. All right, Rob. Thanks a lot. We'll check you out.
And feel free to stay on as long as you want, man. If you want to just hang out and just finish.
I want to rag on Chelsea too.
Yeah, hang out, man.
So we're gonna give Coach Matt a chance to enjoy his bailiwick and tell us a little bit about what's going on outside of that northern and southern European sphere that we tend to occupy, and give us a roundup on the end or mid or whatever season it is with some of these Eastern European leagues that you follow?
Well, let's start with Ukraine, and it's starting to look a lot like the Bundesliga. It's Shakhtar, 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 Shakhtar. Although I do feel somewhat vindicated that for the first time in a while, someone broke that sort of Shakhtar Dynamo duopoly, and Chelsea Mike's Dnipro, and you can celebrate. There's reason to celebrate beyond Chelsea. Might be playing champion. It looks like they're going to be playing Champions League football next year. So job well done there. Zoroya finishing third in the automatic Europa League spot. Dynamo Kiev with the fourth spot. Not a great season for my boys, but when you sell your two best players in January and your manager misses the last 2 months due to heart issues because he's an 80-year-old Romanian man, that's what happens. In terms of relegation, no real surprises. Big up to Ruk Lviv for staying in the league, because at the beginning of the season I had them going down because they're literally an academy. And so, I mean, I know it's the UPL, but hey, if you're an academy anywhere and you survive a full season without a real budget in any league, good for you. In terms of promotion, the second team, the first one, Polietsia Zimeter, who won the first division. Good on them. I'm very excited about the second team that's automatically going up. It's a team that was in the Ukrainian Premier League in the aughts when I first started following the league, and a team that I'm rather fond of simply because of who they are, who their owners are, and my penchant for malted beverage. Obolon Kiev will be back in the Ukrainian Premier League next season, and I am thrilled about that. Mike?
I mean, Obolon was. Oh, are you talking to me, Chelsea Mike? Because Obolon was always my favorite beer in Ukraine.
Yeah, it's my favorite Ukrainian beer, and I have a soft spot for that club. The jerseys look like a beloved lager of mine, so and it'd be cool to see a proper Kiev derby, because we haven't had that in a while. In terms of other Eastern,
has anything happened? Because I've fallen off with the Kazakh league.
Well, I was about to pimp the Kazakh league. So things are winding down in Ukraine because they're on the traditional European late summer through spring schedule with the prolonged winter break because it's too cold for life. Kazakhstan is still on the old Soviet spring through autumn schedule. So this summer, if you don't want to watch, Chelsea play Brighton in Philadelphia or Liverpool, I think we're going back to Asia again this year. I'm not certain why. You can turn into the Kazakh Premier League, and after a strong start, it seems that Kairat is fading, although they still have the highest goal scorer in the league in João Paulo. But, the established Soviet side seems to be waning a bit, and Astana are back in first place. So, or is it Nur Sultan? I'm not totally sure. The city is Nur Sultan. The club, I think, is still Astana. So you can watch that literally all summer.
And that's streaming on OneFootball, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Also still available all summer, although I'm queasy watching it. I was queasy during COVID, post Russian invasion of Ukraine, even more so. The Belarus League is also on the old Soviet calendar. And I because I knew we were recording this week, I did check the standings. I will say one thing. I'm a purist when it comes to post-Soviet football. teams that have a pedigree from before the collapse of the Soviet Union, and teams who, I don't know, aren't state-owned, Zenit, etc.
Mhm.
I have a fondness for Dynamo Minsk are walking that league, and this brings me much joy because they've been in the gutter pretty much for 15 years, partially because they're not particularly run well.
Mm.
And for whatever reason, they're not a favorite of the gangster people in charge of that country. But they're walking that league, and they're walking that league with a 35-year-old Anton Pulsitsa, who you might remember from like Freiburg and Hamburg in the Bundesliga about 20 years ago, as their attacking midfielder. And I was looking at their coaching staff, and I'm glad you're on the pod tonight, Stead. You know who's one of their assistant coaches?
Who?
Alexander Hilp.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a name I haven't heard in a decade. Wow.
So I again, I feel dirty watching that league, but I might have to. I might have to tune in a little bit because I was like, wait a minute, Dynamo Minsker in first, and then I'm like, wait a minute, he's there. Well, he's there. Yeah,
Wow.
Mr. Belarus, who played for ours, and did he go to Barcelona after you guys?
I think so. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Wow. That's cool.
So Kazakhstan and Belarus, I'll be here with updates all summer long, and any transfers worth talking about, I'll
Well, before we let Chelsea Mike talk about the Chelsea women's team for the next 15 minutes, I have to.
Do we even have a men's team? I haven't heard of them.
Yeah, I have to ask you, Matt. I mean, we did a discussion about Arsenal. We haven't talked much about the other teams that were in the top 6, but I am curious. Is this Liverpool team that won a Champions League and that, did win a league and, did finish second to a 100-point winning team? Is that team finished?
Yes. Yes.
So where are they going? Because I'm sure Liverpool never wants to revisit the days when they were finishing 7th,
No. And I mean, to put a bow on this season, it was a disappointment. Not as big a disappointment as Mike's disappointment or Chelsea Mike's disappointment.
Or Lowe's for that matter. I'm going to dump on them in a minute. I'm dumping on them in a minute. That's coming.
Our top 4 is the minimum of expectations. And we came close. And the end of the season push was good on a number of levels, only in so much that it looks like Cody Gapko is just the new Bobby. Curtis Jones, who I was ready to loan out at the beginning of the season, if you remember. I think he has a future in this team. And in so much that earlier in the year, I was saying, I'm Klopp in, but next season, give me until Christmas. A lot of that was because the tactical inflexibility. It was like, I know it's not working, but if it's not working, then why are we still playing a high line? Why are we still doing 4-3-3? Well, I saw some tactical flexibility. I mean,
he went to 3 at the back.
3 at the back, and Trent and me and Chelsea Mike spent 10 minutes talking about this, I think in February. Trent Alexander-Arnold is not you can get away with him as a right back. I think he is more suited as either a central midfielder in a pivot or as a right wing back with 3.
Well, we know that they need to reinforce the midfield. And I had a long conversation with somebody, and we've talked about it before. Teams have a single team has about a 5-year shelf life, right?
I think in today's game, 5 years is almost pushing it.
Well, we're on okay, it's 3 to 5. Let's go with 3 to 5 years, but this is a 7-year rotation for this team.
Yeah.
And so they're past their expiration date. And they went a year too long in certain places and should have made more of an effort to restock the midfield. But now you find yourself in a situation where you need to go out and get 2 midfielders.
Great.
And I would say 3, but at least 2, right? And with the money that's available and the prices that you're going to have to spend, does Liverpool have $300 million to rebuild their midfield? And if they get 3 midfielders, is that enough? Because that still leaves you light in defense. You're one Virgil van Dijk injury away from catastrophe again.
In terms of what they have, my understanding is the budget is pretty decent, in so much that we were saving money on a guy, for one guy. I came on this podcast months ago and said one guy doesn't fix this. There's no magic bullet.
So it's not going to be. We know it's not going to be Jude Bellingham.
No, it's not going to be Jude. It's not going to be the midfielder for Inter, who I was marveling at again in the Champions League, Barella. I don't think it's even going to be Milinkovic-Savic. It looks like McAllister is almost a done deal. And I have no idea. Maybe Jurgen Klopp, maybe this new German guy who is our sporting director, Jurg, who, Byron Robb might have more info on. Maybe they're listening to this podcast. I said, we need, because I think you had mentioned Declan Rice around January.
He looked like at the time he made sense.
But okay, price tag, which is always the thing with Liverpool. And the second thing, Declan Rice has played a crap ton of football over the last 4 or 5 years. At Arsenal, where they need him, and where they play more of a possession-based game, I think that makes sense. At Liverpool, my fear is we get him, we spend a lot of money, and 1 year under Klopp, we have burnt rice. We have inedible rice. The legs gone. He's dead. He's done.
Yeah, he won't have to play every game at Arsenal either.
The names that I'm hearing are all younger guys. We need midfielders who are in the 20 to 23 year kind of range, and in the sort of 35 to maybe 50 sort of range in terms of budget. And I'm hearing Manu Kone from Gladbach, and they need the money, God knows, because they have no European football. And the second son of Thuram. I'll take that, because those two, they're good. One thing I know about Jurgen Klopp, he makes good players better. And they're fresh legs. I know they're not going to be burnt out after 1 or 2 seasons. So I think they can get that done. I think they're going to add one more defender too, because I think they're going to sell on people. We know who's leaving per se, but we just re-signed Adrian. You don't re-sign a third goalkeeper, a veteran, just for like vibes. I know he's good in the locker room. Kelleher is going to get moved.
Yeah, but we figured that much because either A, he's got to go out on loan, or B, he's going to want to move because he wants to play for his national team. He
should be the number one for the Republic. Yeah.
And they have a good young goalkeeper who may take over for him. So there's, he sees his shot. He's done it. The stock is high. Either A, he goes out on loan, or B, he moves permanently. And there's going to be plenty of suitors for Kelleher.
Yeah,
he should.
I think Kelleher gets moved,
but Kelleher doesn't solve the problem of center back. And if you move, which I believe you should, Trent into a permanent midfield role, which takes out the need to buy a true number 6, you're going to need a right back.
Well, hold on. Let me finish. I think we move Kelleher. I think one of our veteran midfielders gets moved. I think Thiago or Fabinho gets sold this summer.
I think Fabinho's more likely.
It depends. It depends. If
Thiago's a little bit younger than Fabinho.
Ooh, weirdly enough, no. Thiago's got 2 years on Fabs. Fabs just has the body of a 35-year-old because Jurgen runs you. Hence, burnt rice. Supposedly, we're in on a left-sided center back. I'm going to butcher his name because I keep looking at it, and I think it's the woman who dubbed all the Bond ladies. But it's Nikki van der Ben, not Nikki van der Sal.
Never heard.
Left-sided center back, 21. I did some digging. I never heard of him until about a week ago either. The right back issue, and here's where things get weird. And I wish Cam was still on.
He wasn't on it. He wasn't on before.
Okay. We have Calvin Ramsey. I have no idea what he can offer, but Cam swears by his talent. Joe Gomez is no longer a center back. He's looked decent as a defensive right back. My preferred option, and I think we could get him fairly cheap, we have raided Southampton, Dejan Lovren, Sadio Mane. Pay 15 to 20 mil and get Kyle Walker-Peters.
I think he would be a little bit older than I would anticipate. I think he's a better option because I don't think that Joe Gomez can get up and down the field. If you're saying he's not a center back, I don't think he can get up and down the field the way that Jurgen Klopp wants him to. I mean, the one thing that Trent did was he was able to get up and down the field in an effective manner.
That's assuming, I agree, but that's assuming that if we continue to play this kind of high line. The fact that we're not in on a pure DM also kind of leads me to believe that we're probably going to be doing more double pivot next year. And why would we potentially in on like a Mason Mount to not play him at his correct position? I think we're going to see McAllister being used more as a 10. I don't.
They need, regardless, McAllister brings something to them that they need at this point. But so, all right, we're getting towards dump on Chelsea time. We've also got to do
very quickly,
dump on
before we exit. You talked about the defense. I do think some pieces are going to be added. They might not be. They may be random Dutch guys we've never heard of.
I wouldn't be surprised.
The one area where I think we are going to punt on, which I'm a little concerned, we have spent a lot of money in terms of our forwards. We don't have coverage on the right wing. If Mo Salah goes down, we're screwed.
Yeah, but you're gonna have to go with Jota and Luis Diaz as kind of.
Neither of them really can play out on the right. I mean,
I know, but that's just what you're gonna have to do.
But
that's what you're gonna have to do when you spent all that money on Cody Gakpo, and Darwin. You're not spending money on it because they're bigger needs.
Yeah.
Than backup coverage. You bring that up from the youth team. And that's just what we talked about. You know, there's only one team in the world there's only two teams in the world right now that can say, you know what, we can afford to pay $50 to $75 million for somebody to sit on the bench as coverage for our all-world right winger. And that's City and PSG. So, well, Matt,
I mean,
3 in Newcastle, but Newcastle are taking notes and saying, let's do
not like, but they got to fly under the.
They did it, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, let's fly.
Michael, I know of a team that likes to spend money
I said
on
that can
wingers, especially on wingers,
that-
especially.
I should say that can effectively spend money. And although that was the perfect segue into bag on Chelsea and bag on Spurs time, I do need to do real quick the recap. We talked about Arsenal, we talked about Liverpool. I do need to do my own self-examination on the United season, which will now end this week in a FA Cup final against City. And look, it was a up and down season. It was a total roller coaster. If you had told me after the first two games against Brighton and Brentford, after those two losses, that we would have finished third, at that point in time, you all can attest to the fact that I believe that we would have been more in the relegation zone than any place else. But there was also a point in the middle of the season where I thought that we would be more competitive and that third was a lock and we might be able to push the likes of Arsenal and in Manchester City a little more than we were able to do. At the end of the season, we end up third. I think that Erik ten Hag did as much with this Manchester United squad as he possibly could. And he got the most out of players. If we judge an MVP by who is truly the most valuable player to his team, the one who has transformed the team more than anybody else. Look, I don't know if for the Premier League it's Casemiro for sure, but he's got to be in the running. Like the two biggest differences that I saw this year in Man United was Erik ten Hag on the touchline and Casemiro in the middle of the park. He made things different. And if you want to believe the quotes that you heard, it was after that debacle in Brentford. He said to ten Hag and his manager or his agent, he said, "Tell him to come. Tell him I'm coming. And tell him I can fix this." And he did. And he was a massive difference. Marcus Rashford had the season of his life in what is a de facto contract here. Congratulations on the 30 goals that he scored. He is an integral attacker, and I hope they can resign him. The biggest issue that we currently have at United is the ownership issue. The Glazers' desire to extract every last bloody cent that they can, again, is hampering this team. Erik ten Hag did everything that he could. He got the team back into the Champions League. He did as much as he could. He did spend a lot of money, and not every purchase was successful. I don't think Anthony was what we hoped he would be. There's still a chance that he may come good. There's still may be a chance that could be $80 million down the drain. Look, everybody on here has a player who they've paid a lot of money for, who has been a complete and total bust, and that may be him. Look, Man United has a team full of them. Just see Maguire, Harry. Captain Uzo, who hopefully we've just found out we may need to pay $10 million just to see the back end of him. But most of what ten Hag wanted came good this season. But he did as much with the squad as he could. Right? They need a true number 9. Anthony Martial is not it. He needs to go. Right? They need cover at defense. They need midfield help. Right? You cannot go into another season relying exclusively on Casemiro and Christian Eriksen. And we're not trying to challenge for a championship next year. We just need with the expansion of the season as a result of being in the Champions League, we just need more bodies in there who can function so that we can remain in a top 4 type position. But because of the ownership situation, we have no budget. So this is my diatribe for the day. Every rumor that you see linking Man United with a player, take it with a grain of salt, because there is currently nobody actually signing a check. If you think that the Glazer family is going to lay $140 million out for Victor Osimhen to get a number 9, or to even come close to what Daniel Levy would want for Harry Kane, even though he said that he's not going to sign him, you're lying to yourself. They're not putting a dime more into that team. In fact, it is more likely that they will take all the profits, take any profit from a sale, and walk off and declare victory. This needs to be cleared up. Any rumor you hear right now, take it with a grain of salt, because there is nobody there to set a budget and sign a check. And my biggest fear is that we are going to end up taking a massive step backwards next year. And we are more at risk of losing players like Marcus Rashford because of this ownership situation and their inability to really negotiate big ticket purchases. We're more at risk for losing a player like Marcus Rashford. We're more at risk of actually isolating Eric Ten Hag and causing him to rethink his commitment to this team than we are of moving forward. And that's my dark fear. All right, so that's my piece on Manchester United. That is the dark part of this segment. I welcome Chelsea Mike into the shooting gallery as we go into Bag on Chelsea time. Mike, you now have the next 3 minutes or so to defend yourself.
Why would I do that? I'll give you 30 seconds. How about this? I'm not going to defend anything. My team was awful this year. It was an embarrassment to watch. They brought in 600 million pounds worth of players and they sucked. It was absolutely awful. There was no vision. The vision that they thought they had was Graham Potter. And Graham Potter, as it turns out, was everything that was wrong with Brighton that I've been complaining about on this program for years. He comes over to my team, ruins them, and goes away. What an awful showing that was from a side that ought to be in the championship conversation every single day, not every single year. When you see Chelsea on your schedule, you should be afraid that a top 4 team is going to come into your building and beat you. And absolutely, Southampton wasn't afraid of Chelsea this year, and they beat Chelsea, and they came in 20th and went down. What Chelsea put on the field this year was absolutely unacceptable, and just bringing in more and more players, more and more wingers, on and on with absolutely no vision has got to change. And okay, so we've got some optimism now because there's another new manager. Our 4th this year, because if you told me, is Byron Robb still here? If you told me at the beginning of the year that Thomas Tuchel would lead his team to a league title, overcoming a rival who shouldn't have lost a game and winning the league, I'd have been delighted, because Thomas Tuchel was our coach 3 coaches ago, like 9 months ago. It's just been it's been hideous. There's the vision for Chelsea is we want to have a side that the new vision amongst the owners is we want to have a side that's got consistency, that has a Jurgen Klopp, or a Pep that guides us through eras. They want a change from the old Russian ways of, you've had 5 bad games, we're going to axe you. But right now it doesn't look like that, I'm sure, to the outside world, because we just keep axing our managers. But the vision is there. There's way too many players. In fact, I have a list of 18 players I think Chelsea should let go of. And maybe 2 or 3 we should bring in. The talent is there. The good players are there. It just needs to be unlocked in some way. The optimism is we're young, very young. The counter side to that is there's no real leadership if you actually get into a top 4 fight. They'll be fresh next year because we're not playing anywhere in Europe. We couldn't even get the Conference League. So, maybe those early round fixtures in the League Cup will have a little bit more vim and vigor than they usually do. But it's hard to watch, man. The redeeming part to my entire soccer year was that our women's team is bloody awesome. They should have beaten Barcelona. They won a double. And honestly, it saved my weekends because I'd like to come up here and be a tough guy and say, oh, I don't even watch it. It's terrible. But I did because I'm a weak, foolish man who just gets sucked in. And then I hate it. And I can't do this anymore. Give me a better team.
So the big signing that we're expecting to be announced was that one that was negotiated almost prior to the start of the season, which is that Christopher Nkunku is going to go from Leipzig, and he's going to join this list of wingers.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I guess maybe he'll play winger, but I sort of see him more as a second forward.
Yeah, but you don't have a first forward.
Yeah, which is the problem. I mean, right now he's like the 9.
Which he isn't.
Right. And so the question
but this is the problem that we have is right now you're bringing in a player and you're bringing in a manager. And Poch, look, they are giving a lot to Poch. Poch instead is kind of like it's kind of like our guy Ron Rivera at the Panthers. They're giving up the farm. They're giving him everything because they need him to save them. This whole entire project that they've got is based on Poch being successful, because if he's not, and they have to get rid of him next year, it's going to be bad. I mean, it is going to be bad.
It's going to be really bad. And let me tell you, I'm not approaching it exactly with the optimism that maybe our ownership is, because, I mean, think about all those wonderful English trophies Poch has. That's a dump on Tottenham. And if I can dump on any team, it's Tottenham.
Yet they finished above you.
But speaking of Tottenham, I mean, look, I'm not saying you can give Chelsea a pass, but considering what happened with ownership in the past 18 months, it was almost expected that they would fall. Now, I don't think anyone expected them to completely just give up on the season, but you had to expect some level of dip.
I don't.
I do, and I did, and I said that, and that's exactly what happened.
I didn't expect a level. I didn't expect them to be. I had them finishing a lot higher. I thought that Thomas Tuchel was going to take advantage of all of the gifts that he had been given. Right?
I agree, but I said but don't forget, they went from winning Champions League. So
they went from winning Champions League. Yes, I didn't expect them to win the Champions League again.
No, but what I'm saying is I expected a dip, is what I was saying. I expected a dip in form. Because as we discussed earlier, when you have front offices that are in somewhat level of disarray, it does affect the product on the field. And that's exactly what happened with Chelsea.
They gave him everything in the world. All right.
That doesn't change the argument, though. It doesn't change what I've said.
I mean, I think more than that, the fact is that they made a decision that Graham Potter was going to be the guy. And Graham Potter is clearly just not up for it. I mean, look at how high Brighton went this year without the anchor of Graham Potter.
So either A, you're saying Graham Potter was what was holding them back when they bought De Zerbi in, but at the time that they had gotten Graham Potter, like Brighton were playing at where they were now. They were a really good team at the beginning of the year. They were tough out. They looked really good. I understand why Chelsea made the decision to go after Graham Potter at the time that they did. He'd been there. He built Brighton up. And to be honest, felt like Graham had built them up. He had played a more conservative brand of football for a couple of years. Now he had the team, and he was launching them on the Premier League. It so happens that they went out and got De Zerbi in, who you want to talk about striking it rich when moving from managers. That's what Brighton did. Like, the only thing that I can think that comes close is when, somehow after letting Claudio Ranieri go, Leicester convinced Brendan Rodgers to come down from Celtic, and he kept them up in the European places for about 3 years, right? So every once in a while that works. I can understand why Chelsea made the Graham Potter move at the time. I thought the problem was Graham Potter actually leaving Brighton. I thought he should have stayed there because that product was better. He had more of his players and a better team to work with rather than, like, what was the guiding structure for putting this team together?
Well, I'll tell you, I like that's exactly the problem, right? You've actually keyed in on the problem. The Brighton approach to putting a team better is like sort of the Moneyball kind of movie sort of stuff. It's, finding good players out of, leagues you haven't heard of and putting them together and spending some money sometimes, but usually kind of
buy low, sell high.
Right, exactly. While the Chelsea vision is just buy right now, and I think they need to change their approach to such that, like, okay, everybody with a price tag on them that's enormous isn't who we should have, because they're not always the best players in the world to fit it. They're maybe the best players in the world, but they're not the best players to fit into something that we're trying to do. So yes, they need to have an overarching vision that needs to come from the front office and be through the manager. And I hope that Bowley has learned from this experience that it can't be dictated from the top. Like, he's not a football guy. You got to let your football guy make these decisions. And what you need to put in place around him is a support system of, like, very smart people who are doing data analytics and stuff on players to find, to fit what he does best.
But the problem is right now, you have saddled Poch with some assets that he is stuck with, like Mudryk has a 10-year. What is that? An 8-year contract? 10 years. Yeah, I thought it was eight.
Yeah,
8-year contract. I mean, some of these contracts that they have signed and the way that they've prorated these bonuses, whether or not it's been paid at once, the way they've structured them for financial fair play. I mean, these are assets that are going to be on the books for a long time. You cannot move them. And so of that list of 18 players that you need to get rid of, you need to get rid of 18 players. But does that even solve the problem of the fact that you now still have a lot of them? You can't necessarily bring in anybody new. You're kind of in the place where you have a bloated squad, you have some immovable contracts, and you're stuck in this period of stasis, and you've given all the power in the world to Poch, saying, fix this. You have to fix this for us.
Yeah, well, do you want me to be optimistic? You know, is
I
that
want
my
you to
role
tell.
here? Like,
I'm
make a
not. I'm
counter
just not.
argument? I
Do
mean, no,
do.
there's guys who I actually really like Mudryk. I know Professor Matt has watched him for a long time, and he is everything that Professor Matt said he is. He's very fast. He's got an actually a very amazing football IQ, because when he first got bought and they were actively playing him all the time, he was getting into absolutely wonderful positions. His problem is the problem that Chelsea had all year. He can't score. He can't finish. They need somebody who could finish the ball. And the fact that that's been an oversight, not just of this regime, but of kind of the end of the last one, is sort of, I mean, it's mind-boggling. Here's a big problem. You want to talk about players we're saddled with? Well, Romelu Lukaku is a Chelsea player. He's under contract with Chelsea. No one wants him, including Chelsea. So, like, but also we need a 9. But he's just so, like, he's so destructive, like, to the morale of a team, that, like, no one wants him around. What do you do with that? Like, there are some kind of players like Havertz who we need to sell. Havertz just needs to go. He needs to get out. But can we sell him? I don't think so. And so then he has to ride the bench. And his transfer was, I think, 80 million. I mean,
Something like that.
yeah. You know, that's, you know, there's guys with enormous contracts. They're more what I worry about, because they're not going to want to leave. They'd rather sit on the bench and suck down Todd Bowley's money. And, you know,
Well, the problem is that, like, they're not going to leave because either A, Chelsea's going to have to subsidize some of their contract for them to move someplace else, or B, they're not going to be able to negotiate the wages that they want. So it's like, okay, like, I got a guaranteed contract right now. I'm not leaving to make 60% of what I'm getting paid right now. Plus, oh, by the way, I've got to uproot and leave. Y'all got to be joking.
right. And I don't think Fulham or Arsenal are buying too many of Chelsea's players, you know?
I mean, they're going to honestly have to, like, give some guys away.
Yeah. Well, that's, you know, there's
And
guys
that's
like there's guys like N'Golo Kante who's out of contract, but it's like, I mean,
they may just need to
you even bring him back?
You may just need to let him leave,
Right.
because. So, all right, Stead, we got a couple of minutes left. We've done enough torturing Mike. Anybody want to bag on Spurs?
Rob, go first. Rob. Go ahead, Rob.
Rob, go for it.
You know, I love Son. One of the best smiles in the league. You know, just a wonderful person. When he got the red card a couple of seasons ago, he was in the locker room crying. Just hurt my soul. And I see him, and then I see Harry Kane, who all that talent, all that striking talent, just going to waste at Spurs. And I open up my Bavarian arms to you, both players, Harry Kane and Son, Young Son. Please, we will save you. We will give you trophies. You will be loved. There's no such thing as Spursing at Bayern or in Germany in general. Please come. You know, someone needs to save them, because I can't watch talent like Harry Kane and Heung-min Son just go to waste. They were in Champions League spot for a long time, and then they just screwed the pooch. It was bad. Like you know, they had this great moment with Lucas Moura. You know, it's probably the only bright spot in the whole season for them. They don't know who their manager is going to be.
Well, they are trying, and it looks more and more likely that they're going to bring in and Postecoglou from Celtic.
Yeah,
And I know that Cam is having an out and out apoplectic fit, and I think that he's been on a bender for the last couple of days, and that's why he missed a segment tonight, because he's just so heartbroken at the fact that he's going to lose. And it was a risky hire by Celtic in the first place to go out and get this guy, but I mean, the work he's done, at least domestically with them, the last 2 seasons has been amazing. I will be interested to see what he would do in the Premier League, right? He's going to play out and out attacking football. He has shown that he can bring in talent and win in Scotland with, you know, he can win with certain players in Scotland, but going from Scotland,
cast-offs from Ruben Kazan.
I mean, it was a lot of cast-offs and guys,
foreigners from a team in freaking Tartarstan.
But and like, so he made Cameron Carter-Vickers better. He was doing with cast-offs like Aaron Moy and Joe Hart and Cameron Carter-Vickers and a bunch of guys from Japan. But what he did was he won a bunch of games in Scotland. And remember, they were not particularly good, as Cam and I have agreed, in Europe.
And he won a lot of games in Scotland with Celtic.
Yeah.
If you win with Celtic, even you win with Rangers, take my boy, Stevie G. Okay, that's good. For me, that barometer is, well, Mike, it's your boy. Win in Scotland with Hearts.
I was going to say, if he's coaching at Aberdeen, or if he's coaching at Hearts, or he's coaching at Hibs or something like that, yeah, that would carry a lot more weight. But like, you know, but to bring this back to Spurs, you know, Harry Kane has the worst luck. This guy scored 30 goals twice and hasn't won the Golden Boot when he's done. He scored 30 goals.
Yeah, you know, this would be a year that people talk about Harry Kane, and nobody cared because Erling Haaland just went off.
But even if Spurs were in a Champions League, and if they were actually solidly in Champions League, I think Harry Kane would have gotten a bit more conversation.
But see, this is the curse of being Harry Kane. You score 35 goals. You play for Tottenham. That's a problem. And in this calendar year, everyone is talking about you, or they remember your missed penalty in the World Cup because you're
Well, I let me throw this out there, because this is my opinion, maybe a bit contrary, and I know Spurs fans wouldn't want to hear this. Maybe Harry Kane is the problem. Harry Kane's been your captain for how many years, and what have you won?
That's
maybe Harry
Kane's
not going to lead.
I was going that direction. That's exactly the direction I was going.
Right. All of England, maybe Harry Kane's not going to lead you to the World Cup title.
No.
Maybe Harry Kane is just
Harry. What are you?
All I'm saying is this is my thought though. When you have a team that is overly reliant on one player to do well, you see other parts of the squad are underperforming. Look at their goals against. Okay, Spurs gave up 63 goals this year. The only team that gave up more goals that didn't get relegated finished in 17th place, and that was Nottingham Forest. That team couldn't stop a nosebleed. So obviously, the issue is there's a serious lack of continuity between the attack and the defense, and that they don't know how to play together, because that highlights it right there. If you have the ability to score as many goals as you're able to score, even with one player, then there should be some level of control of the football. They're not controlling the ball, and they're giving up goals left and right. You don't give up 63 gols. Like, it is phenomenal that they finished 8th. The fact with that level of goals, I'm not blaming Harry, but I'm not even saying Harry Kane's necessarily the problem. What I'm saying though is that with this light on Harry Kane, this team has underperformed for the last 10 years. Outside of the one season where they won where they got to Champions League final, they haven't won anything. They should have at least won a League Cup. Birmingham City won a League Cup over Arsenal. They should have at least won something in this run they've been on, and they haven't won anything, and they've only reached, what, 2 or 3 cup finals? And that's it.
And they fired one of the best cup managers of all time.
Right. No, they didn't.
One of those
they didn't win a trophy. No, they did not. They did not win.
No, what I was saying, you said they've reached 2 or 3 cup finals. I would say no, they've reached 1. They reached the Champions League final. That's the only cup final.
I thought they won. Didn't they reach a League Cup final?
The year they fired Mourinho, they went to I think it was the League Cup final.
I thought they went to a League Cup final. Yeah.
Like 48 hours.
Right.
Yeah, they didn't let him Mourinho in.
Yeah. I know they got to one more final. Yeah, they lost.
Because
they lost both. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I said, 2 or 3. I wasn't sure. But I was like, they went to a few League Cup, but that was it. But that's it. That's it.
I thought it was. I didn't think that was a final.
Arsenal,
I thought that was semi-final.
And the team that Spurs seem to think that they need to constantly shake their dicks at have been to way more cup finals in the worst run that they've had since the Premier League has started. So, like, you all have sorely underachieved. You have sorely underachieved. And the reason why, and look, Spurs fans are so happy with simply finishing above Arsenal. And I said that years ago. That is their only goal, is to finish above Arsenal. That's it. And you see, they clearly are, apparently they're satisfied with that, because that's the best thing they can say they've done in the past 10 years, is that they've had it like 4 or 5 years they finished above Arsenal. That's it.
I said it on this show. I watched a 3-minute video on YouTube when Spurs crashed out of the FA Cup that said it was more important that they reach Europe than they win the FA Cup.
Which is
like, you have not won a trophy in forever.
Won anything.
That's high level coping.
I'm sorry. And I saw a 10-minute video from Spurs fans using the word emulate so many times, because Spurs did something in 1968 that apparently every other team in the league is trying to do. And so if you do achieve that goal, you're simply trying to emulate Spurs. It is the stupidest argument fans ever make. Bragging about what you did 50 years ago is like bragging about a girl you hooked up with in high school when you're my age. It's dumb. It's idiotic, and I can't stand it. That needs to stop. That club, who I have purposely not dumped on because I really like Los. I really like him. He's a good guy. He's a good guy. I'm going to make my way down to Tampa after I move to Atlanta solely to hang out with him. But it is ridiculous. They have completely underachieved. Completely. They've spent a lot of money. They have a payroll that's comparable to the other big 6 teams outside of Manchester City, and they have not won a thing, and now they finished in 8th place. With a talented squad, they have finished 8th place.
And this is a
30-goal scorer. You finished 8th place.
So they're playing in the Conference League, hopefully. No, they're playing in the Conference League.
They have to qualify.
Yeah, they have to qualify for the Conference League.
They got to play the bunch of Matt's boys from Kazakhstan.
Well, and one of the good reasons is because Manchester United is in the FA Cup final and made the Champions League, because that could have easily not happened for them. They've got an asset right now in Harry Kane for which they can get a ton of money. An obscene amount of money for somebody who is 29 years old and has played a lot of games. I mean, we are quoting 140 million for Victor Osimhen, who's about 6 or 8 years younger, faster. But because he does not have the same goal scoring record that Harry Kane does, we can say that they would go for a comparable, if not equal, amount of money. You would get an obscene amount of money for a 28-year-old striker right now, a 29-year-old striker. And they're going to hang on to him out of general principle.
They are. They're not.
Yeah.
They need.
And that's the problem.
They need to do something radical.
They could get upwards of 140 to 150 million, because, like we said at the beginning of the show, Rob, there are really only 2 top number 9s on the market right now, and there are more than 2 teams that need one. You have Victor Osimhen, you have Harry Kane, and give me the other. We said the kid from Juventus, but I don't see anybody beating down the doors for him. And then you're into Romelu Lukaku and Tammy Abraham.
Oh, we've got Aubameyang for you too. We'll give you both.
And you know what the most scary thing is? Like, after you get past Aubameyang, who Barca wants and seems to wants to go back to Barca, fine, let that marriage happen. After Tammy Abraham, Romelu Lukaku, you know who you get to? Anthony Martial.
All right, we gotta wrap this up. We gotta wrap this up.
I'm right.
Yes, we gotta wrap this up. We're on 2.5 hours, man.
Asset. You've got an asset that you just need to deal with and suck it up, drive on.
Yeah.
Let Manchester United overpay for him.
Yep.
Take that
and
money,
rebuild your squad. Go get some defenders and a defensive midfielder. You need it desperately.
If you think Ange can coach at this level, I question whether he's going to be successful.
Agreed.
I have not seen it in Europe. I would love to see him do
1,000%.
I'd love to see him do another season at Celtic and actually get them into a knockout round and win.
Mm-hmm.
Remember,
not even that. At least get 9 points in the group stage and maybe you know what I mean?
No,
do something.
Has not successfully completed a group stage in a tournament yet. He flopped out of the group stages of the Europa League his first season and then got knocked out by a Norwegian team out of the Conference League. He flopped out of the group stages this year and got knocked out of the Europa League. His record in Europe is really not that good.
Yeah.
And that's what Celtic need more than anybody else. Hey, Brendan Rodgers is on the market. Maybe they can get him to come back.
Spurs should get him. I think they should. I'd take Rodgers over. I would.
I would like to see. I think Ange is a great manager. I just like to see him do something before you hire him. That's the risk they're going to take. But let him out and spend that $100 million and getting his players in.
Yeah.
And see what he can do with that.
Hope he learns to speak Japanese or
Brendan
Korean.
Rodgers has won trophies. They can't have that.
Yeah, Brendan Rodgers has won something.
Hey,
all right, gentlemen. Hey, our 100th anniversary and our relaunch after our brief hiatus. A round of applause for us. Has been a complete success. It's been really great to spend this time with you guys. We'll be back at it next week, early, Tuesday, to talk about the FA Cup final, to preview the Champions League final, and to wrap up any odds and ends that we didn't get to today. Man, it felt good to get back in the seat. I'm a little sore. The butt groove isn't the same that it used to be.
Yeah.
My pacing's off, but man, it has been great to be back here again with you gentlemen. So to wrap it up, I want to give a big shout out to Coach G for coming and spending the first little bit with us. Byron Robb for jumping in, Professor Matt for giving us the Eastern Europe, for Chelsea Mike for sitting here and suffering the slings and arrows of being a Chelsea fan and taking our wrath. Los, we love you. We know we bagged on Spurs a little bit.
Yeah. You're the reason why I keep it close,
you.
Los. Love you, Los.
That's no reflection on you. We still love you. You're welcome back anytime to seek revenge. And especially producer Stead as he packs up his house. I can see the banker's boxes in the back.
Yeah.
That's the sure sign of somebody moving some files. So for the cast of the Too Many Guys Soccer Show, Mike, we did all right this week. We'll try and do better next week.